All right, as far as the NFC is concerned, let's start off with the NFC East. Well, the Dallas Cowboys, they're definitely the team that gets all the attention. They're a big media hype machine. They had a pretty good season last year. Figured to be a Super Bowl contender this year. However, that doesn't mean they didn't go through their share of changes, and definitely will probably go through their share of adversity. They did lose DeMarco Murray to free agency. That could be a decision that come back to bite the Cowboys because the running back position is definitely one of the bigger questions in training camp as of right now. Joseph Randall figures to be one of the main calls along with Darren McFadden, but McFadden has been a disappointment for the majority of his career. He does get another opportunity, somewhat of a resurgence in Dallas. Whether he makes the most of it or not is going to be whether or not he can stay healthy or not. Tony Romo is definitely going to be the guy that's going to lead this team, especially when you have Des Bryant out there. Des Bryant did get his contract, so he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to be the big main weapon for the Cowboys now that their running game may not be as strong as they were last year. Jason Witten's still a viable threat at tight end. The second receiver position for the Cowboys is going to be a little bit under scrutiny, even though Terrence Williams had a pretty decent season last year. It's going to be up to the Dallas defense, however, if Dallas is going to reclaim the NFC East crown again this year. This is a young defense, but you can probably make the argument that they're one of the better coached defenses in the NFL. And the running game really helped them last year because they weren't on the field as much. They were able to take chances, and they were very opportunistic. If the running game isn't as strong this year, how will that affect the defense? How will that affect the team as a whole? Things are probably not going to be as easy for the Cowboys this year. They're going to have a tougher schedule. Expectations are higher. But I definitely think they have the talent to overcome any adversity and finish number one in the NFC East. Now, if there's a team that has definitely something to say about that, that would be the Philadelphia Eagles. Chip Kelly, their head coach, has taken his share of criticism over the offseason with some of his decision making in regards to player personnel. He let Jeremy Maclin go. He also traded LaShawn McCoy, but he did get DeMarco Murray, and he also got Ryan Matthews. So the running back position, when you add those two guys, and you also have Darren Sproles, it definitely is going to prove to be a potent mix for the offense. But as far as Chip Kelly goes, is it his system or do great players matter? Because he's definitely let some good players out of the door the last two seasons. And will that come back to bite him and the Eagles in the end? We'll just have to wait and see. But Chip Kelly is definitely going to be at the forefront as far as whether the Eagles have success or failure this year. They went 10-6 the last two seasons. However, 10-6 wasn't enough to get them in the playoffs. It could be enough to get them in the playoffs this year, with Dallas maybe taking a slight step back. But again, is losing guys like Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy and Jeremy Maclin. These are players that are going to be tough to replace, and we'll just have to bear watching on that one. The Eagles' defense, as far as I'm concerned, they'll probably be better. They did make some moves there as well. But the Eagles are going to be all about Chip Kelly, and so that means it's going to be all about offense. And look for him to run the ball more as well to try to help out his defense and to tame how many points he has to score every game, because he knows that in the back of his mind that he let some good players, some very explosive players, out of the door in Philadelphia. All right, the New York Giants. Eli Manning's back for another season. He had a pretty decent season last year, and he had a very explosive player by the name of Odell Beckham step out in the forefront, and he really, really, really came bursting onto the scenes. And he's definitely emerged, and he is going to be the top weapon for the Giants. Victor Cruz, we're hoping that he's able to come back from that torn patella. Very tough injury to come back from. But we're all rooting for him, and hopefully he'll be able to come back healthy and really solidify that Giants passing attack. Because if the Giants are going to have success, it's going to be through the arm of Eli Manning and throwing to these great receivers. The offensive line has been suspect. The running game has been suspect, and the defense has been suspect for the Giants the last, say 2 seasons. And with the situation with Jason Pierre-Paul, you just wonder how much can the Giants contend. But if the offense is that explosive, and the defense can get back to being the defense that Tom Coughlin wants and has to have if they're going to be a contender, you can't count out the Giants just yet. Tom Coughlin is a tough-minded coach. He knows what it takes for this team to be successful, and he's definitely going to look and pull out all the stops to make sure that this team is a contender. All right, the Washington Redskins, unfortunately, the last few years, they've been the bottom finishing team in this division. It's not much to say, that would change that thought process for this season. RG3 is back, relatively healthy. You just wonder if time is running out for this young man in the nation's capital. After a strong rookie season, injuries and poor play have definitely brought him down, and you just wonder if he's not able to turn it around this year, will his time be up in Washington, and he may have to get another start somewhere else. His offensive line has definitely been one of the weaker points of that team for the last few years, which has led to him to have to scramble a little bit more, and it's put him in situations where he's taking hits, he's making bad decisions, and these things are a recipe for disaster. Hopefully things will get better. They did address the offensive line in the draft. They again look to be a decent running team with Alfred Morris. Deshaun Jackson's there. They do have weapons. It's really going to be up to RG3. It's really going to be up to RG3. This is a young man who has the tools. He just has to get out there and show the leadership and consistency that it's going to take to get this team out of the cellar of the NFC East. It was only a few years ago where they won the division and really were one of the hot teams in the NFL. But, again, injuries to RG3 and poor play have really brought this team back down. And if they want to avoid hearing that R word again, which is rebuilding, it's going to be up to RG3 to really elevate his play and get this Washington Redskins team out of the cellar. I'm not sure if he's going to have enough to do it. They're really going to need a lot of luck from the football guys to do it. But hey, stranger things have happened, and that's what makes every NFL season exciting. You just never know what may happen out there. As far as this division goes, I have Dallas finishing first. I have the Eagles second, Giants third, and the Redskins at fourth. All right, moving on to the NFC West. The Seattle Seahawks have dominated this division for the last few seasons. I don't see much into changing that thought process now. Russell Wilson has been a very good quarterback, considering that he was a third-round pick. And wow, he gets even better now because he gets another weapon to throw to in Jimmy Graham. Wow, that's all Russell Wilson needs. A guy that's been to the last 2 Super Bowls, getting another potent toy to play with Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham is, if not the best tight end, he's definitely the second best tight end after Rob Gronkowski, and he's definitely a pass-catching threat. You can line him up all over the field. He can provide a mismatch problem for defenses. And, again, if there was anything that the Seattle Seahawks lacked, it was a very good pass-catching option. Now you add Jimmy Graham into the mix, it's definitely going to transform this Seattle Seahawks team into an even more dangerous team, as if they weren't dangerous enough. But they're still going to be led by the rushing attack, and that means loads and loads of Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is definitely still one of the better running backs in the NFL. He's a bruising running back. He gets stronger as the game goes along, and you can make a case that they would have gave him the ball in that Super Bowl with a few seconds to go at the 1 yard line. We could be talking about 2-time defending champions. However, that was a mistake by Pete Carroll, who's not known for making many mistakes. I think he's going to do everything he can to atone for that mistake, and I think this Seattle Seahawks team will be just as dangerous and just as lights out as ever. So definitely don't sleep on this Seattle team. They may have been a team that's played the most football over the past few years, but they have the talent, and they definitely have the hunger to provide another championship run. All right, the Arizona Cardinals. A lot of people can argue that they were ACL tear away from really contending for a Super Bowl last season. Unfortunately, Carson Palmer suffered the ACL injury. It was his second of his career. He is reportedly coming back from it very strong, and he does look to be back at full strength for the Cardinals. However, it is a different looking Cardinals team than what we saw last year. Todd Bowles is no longer there, the defensive coordinator who really spearheaded the Cardinals defense last season. He's now coaching the Jets as a head coach. Antonio Cromartie is now gone. That really hurts the Cardinals secondary because the Cardinals secondary was their strength, and it allowed Todd Bowles to be able to send a lot of exotic blitzes and different defensive packages that really helped their defense. Now with the secondary maybe a little bit weakened with the exit of Cromartie, it could kind of change the Cardinals defense, which is going to put more pressure on Carson Palmer to provide more of a scoring punch for a team that lacks a running game. So the Cardinals, as talented as they are, if the defense is not as strong as it was last year, you can expect maybe a slight step back for the Cardinals, but definitely still a team that can contend for a playoff spot. All right, the St. Louis Rams. This has got to be one of the more interesting teams to watch this season, especially if you love defense. This team has one of the better defensive lines in football, all first round draft picks. They got better by adding Nick Fairley. This is a defense that, man, as a Saints fan, I am certainly happy we do not have to play these guys. These guys are ferocious, and they will be bringing the heat to opposing quarterbacks and offensive lines, and they will give teams fits. This defense is that good, and I think they can get even better. That's the scary part. The question mark for the Rams is what are they going to do on offense. Going to Sam Bradford, now in is Nick Foles. I think Nick Foles is on paper a better quarterback than Sam Bradford, but with the Rams, who is he going to have to throw the ball to? They don't really have a game-breaking pass option out there. This Rams team is going to be the type of team that's going to try to run the ball at you and try to get big plays out of play action and trick plays. But for the Rams, help is on the way because they added one of the better running backs out of the draft in Todd Gurley from Georgia. Now, if Gurley can get healthy, this guy can really change the Rams' fortunes. He's that good. He was amazing at Georgia. It was unfortunate that he had the injury his last season there. But again, if he can get healthy, he can really help this Rams team, and they can become contenders in a hurry. I really have that much interest in watching the Rams this season to see just how much improved they're going to be and just how far that defense can take them in a division where defense is a necessity because every team can play defense in that division. Well, there was one team that took a lot of punches and they were just decimated, and it wasn't even on the field. It was off the field. It was the San Francisco 49ers. However, the off-the-field issues and off-the-field activities are definitely going to be something that's going to hurt this team. I think it's really going to set them back. First they lose their head coach in Jim Harbaugh. Then they lose a couple weapons on offense. Frank Gore leaves. They lose a lot of guys on defense to retirement. Alden Smith gets in trouble again, which leads to his release. Patrick Willis is no longer there. They lost a couple guys in the secondary. I can't even count on two hands how many guys they lost in the offseason. I don't think that they did enough to retool. They're really going to put a lot of pressure on Colin Kaepernick, and whether or not he can deliver, he hasn't proven that he can be a pocket passer, so to speak. It's really going to be tough on the 49ers this year. I just, if they win, honestly, if they win more than 6 games, I'll be shocked because this is a team now that's really going to have to start all over again. It's been a team that's been a favorite, a darling of the NFL over the years, over the past few decades, but I just think now they're going to take a step back, and it's going to be tough for them to continue the division that has gotten leaps and bounds better. They once were the top upper class of the division, but now I think that belongs to the Seahawks, and now the 49ers are going to have to retool, and it's going to take some time. So I have the Seahawks finishing first in that division, the Cardinals at second, the Rams right behind at third. that could really flip flop depending on the Rams' ability to score on offense. And 49ers are going to finish up at fourth place. I really think it's going to be a tough season for the Niners. Best thing about them this year is they're going to be hosting the Super Bowl, which isn't a small thing to sneeze at because it is the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl. All right, moving on to the NFC North. The Chicago Bears, another change for them. They're going to have Fox as their coach now. And, he's going to have his hands full with the defense that was really disappointing. But if it's one guy that can do it, he can. He did it with the Panthers. He was starting to get things going on with the Denver Broncos. Just things didn't work out there in terms of bringing home a championship. But now he's going to get to start over and get another chance in Chicago. But he's going to have a lot of work to do retooling that defense. And as far as offense goes, he's got a quarterback with the talent in Jay Cutler. But he certainly just hasn't put it together. He's been very disappointing, and it seems to me that he's actually gone backwards as far as his play is concerned. And there's going to be some changes there. They released Brandon Marshall, so now they drafted Kevin White. However, Kevin White was injured. He's not gonna play this year. It doesn't look like so. It's really gonna put a lot of pressure on Alshon Jeffrey and Matt Forte. And, I think it's going to be a tough season for the Bears. Bears fans really love their Bears, but, this is the division that if you don't have the defense and if you don't have the weapons, it's a really, really unpredictable division in terms of how you have to play week by week. But if you're not consistent on defense, and if you don't have the consistent threats to scare other teams, it's really going to be tough for you. And the Bears definitely are a couple years away, I think, from getting back to the glory years, as to say, that they once enjoyed. The Detroit Lions, they definitely took some heavy hits, losing their best defensive player in Ndamukong Suh. They just decided that they weren't going to dole out that kind of money for a defensive player. Especially when they have so much money tied up into Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford. But the Lions' success last year, you really had to say, was led by their defense. And now they lose their best player in Ndamukong Suh. Nick Fairley's now gone. So that front line's going to take a hit. They did salvage it a little bit by bringing in Haloti Ngata. Whether or not he's enough to get the Lions' defense to basically, take a step in the right direction after losing Sue, it's really going to be tough to say. And it really tells me that the Lions are going to try to revert back to outscoring teams. But Calvin Johnson's getting up there in age. He's had problems staying healthy over the past few seasons. They're really going to need him for a full season if Detroit is going to repeat getting back to the playoffs and really challenging for the NFC North crown. They're also making transitions at running back. Reggie Bush is no longer there. They did draft an exciting kid named Amir Abdullah. They're getting rave reviews about him in camp. They also have Joyke Bell. So, the Lions may go through a little bit of a identity change a little bit as far as how they go about playing on the offensive end. Now the defense is taking so many big hits in free agency. But, I won't count this team out. They also have Golden Tate. So they have weapons on offense. Will they be able to outscore teams week to week? That's going to likely be the MO. Whether or not they're successful at that, we'll just have to wait and see as far as that's concerned. All right, the Green Bay Packers. This team, hey, what can you say? They're a team that seemingly contends every season because they have arguably the best quarterback in the NFL in Aaron Rodgers. I don't see much change in there. I see another pretty good season for him. He definitely has the weapons with Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb. There's also other guys that's stepping up. I like this Green Bay team offensively. Defensively, they're kind of a middle of the road type team. I think if the Packers really concerned themselves with being a more ball control team, and that means more and more of Eddie Lacy, because I really like this guy. Eddie Lacy is the type of guy. He has the speed, he has the size, he has the moves, he has the ability to to really eke out yards. If they concern themselves with being more ball control team and keeping their defense off the field a little bit more, I think the Packers could be an even better team. But they rely on being explosive, and it's hard to argue with that when you have Aaron Rodgers. But I really think, the defense kind of brings a little bit of a letdown. The NFC Championship game from last year kind of comes to mind. They had Seattle on the ropes, and really some questionable play by the defense at the end, toward the end of the game, really kind of was a head scratcher. But if the defense is able to get better, then lights out, and it's going to be lights out, and sky's the limit. But this is a team that's definitely led by Aaron Rodgers, and I don't see much of that changing. This is a team that you definitely have to watch out for in terms of a Super Bowl run. All right, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I have to say, I really, really, really like this team. It's, I can't explain it. I mean, I think Teddy Bridgewater was one of the more underrated quarterbacks that was taken in the previous year's draft. And I definitely think this guy is going to be, I'm not going to say he's going to be a great quarterback, but I think he's going to be a quarterback to be reckoned with. And he really showed flashes of brilliance last season without Adrian Peterson. Now you add Adrian Peterson, probably a more motivated Adrian Peterson, and you got a recipe for success, in my opinion. I think this is the perfect type of team where they can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and their defense is a hard-hitting, top-notch defense. And I really like this team. I really think Teddy Bridgewater is really going to benefit from playing with Adrian Peterson. I think he's the right fit for this team. You add in Mike Wallace, who can provide the speed down the field at the wide receiver position. I really like this Minnesota Vikings team, and I think they're going to surprise some people. I think they're going to turn some heads. Just remember I said it. I really like this Minnesota Vikings team. Mike Zimmer is a tough-nosed guy. He's got that defense playing well, and they have the recipe to really challenge the Green Bay Packers. They may not win the division, but I think they're going to give the Packers fits in the division. I just really like this Minnesota team, and I think they're really going to turn some heads this year. Right, as far as how I feel the division is going to end up, I've got the Packers first, I got the Vikings second, the Lions are going to come in third, and the Bears at fourth. All right, the last division in the NFC South, my division, with the New Orleans Saints. Well, if there's a team that's really had a lot of off-the-season action, you can even maybe say a little bit of turmoil, you have to say it was the Saints. I mean, what didn't they do this offseason? They traded Jimmy Graham, they traded Kenny Stills, they released Ben Grubbs, they released Curtis Lofton, a number of other guys they released. I mean, it was just a mass exodus of a lot of popular players on that team, including Pierre Thomas, by the way. And it's really going to be a different looking Saints team. A lot's been said as far as how they're going to go about playing, how they're going to go about, are they going to go through a different phase on their offense? Are they going to be a more run-oriented team since they re-signed Mark Ingram and got C.J. Spiller in free agency? It's really going to be an interesting season for the Saints. Drew Brees is back. As far as the wide receiver position goes, there's going to be a battle for a couple of spots at that position. But Brandon Cooks is obviously the guy with Marcus Colston looking to finish off his career in the black and gold. But the question with this team, the biggest question obviously is going to be the defense. What will the defense do this season under Rob Ryan? The preseason started. They've already played one game. The first team defense did not look good at all. Yeah, they may have been playing a little bit vanilla, but I still see some issues with this defense. And if the defense is not going to support this offense a little bit more, that's what's going to be the key in determining the Saints' success this year. Sean Payton's a brilliant offensive mind, so I'm not really too worried about the offense. I don't think the offense is going to be the type of offense to score 30 points a game as they did in the past, but it will be good enough to win games. The question is, will the defense hold up their end of the bargain? They didn't last season. This season it's going to be really feast or famine. They did address the cornerback position, the secondary, and if the secondary is going to be solid now, that should really allow Rob Ryan to really send his exotic blitzes, different defensive looks and packages, and really find ways to get to the quarterback, because that's really going to be the way how the Saints are going to have to win on defense. They're going to have to get to the quarterback, create turnovers with that secondary, and give the ball to in advantageous areas for the Saints offense to put up points. It's going to bear watching, and I'm really hoping for the best. I'm not going to judge this team by one preseason game, but hopefully they can improve. I think they will improve. They've got too many talented players on this team not to improve. I think they'll be better than 7-9 ultimately. Whether they're ready for a Super Bowl run, that remains a big question. I would probably say, not being a homer, I would probably say no, but that can change as the season goes along. All right, the Carolina Panthers. They've won the division 2 years in a row, and to do it for a third season, however, they're going to have to do it by overcoming the loss of Calvin Benjamin. It was just this morning that he tore his ACL. He's going to be out for the season. That's really going to hurt Cam Newton because big receivers is really what really is a big advantage to him because he's not the most accurate quarterback in the league. He thrives on throwing the ball up to big targets and letting them go up and get the ball. And it's really going to be on the shoulders of Cam Newton now to really carry this Carolina offense. Now defensively, hey, what more can you ask for on defense? A defense that's led by Luke Kuechly. Now they did have a little bit of a problem getting to the quarterback after losing Greg Hardy. And the word is that they're still trying to find a solution as far as finding that pass rusher at the defensive end position to help get to the quarterback. But overall, this is a defense that's very strong, and they'll have to be strong again for Carolina to contend in this division. But I would definitely not count out this Panthers team. I kind of did so last year, and lo and behold, they won a bunch of games at the end of the season to win the division at 7-8-1. Who would have thunk it? I don't think that'll be a good enough record to win the division this season. But again, I will not count out this Panthers team. They've shown me in the past that they're tough. They're very, very, very capable.